Hello, and welcome to Writers Group Therapy.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Roshni. We're writers helping writers with whatever writing ailments you might have.
Whether it's related to your craft or your career, we can help.
Are you ready for your session?
The
The doctors
doctors
are
are
in.
in.
Tom, what you been working on lately?
I have been working on. I'm still working on a lot of my older scripts with Get It Made. I have one of my sci-fi comedy features is kind of. I'm waiting to get notes back on that, so that'll be going on. And then I don't know if I can talk about it, but I with Get It Made, I've been asked to do a rewrite of a script the founder of the group wrote. So I'm excited about that. It's kind of a feel-good movie, kind of a comedy, kind of. It's a really good first. I don't know if it's a first draft, but it's a really good script. So I think the rewrites it needs are going to be pretty cool. It won't be too hard. But it's my first actual time anyone's actually hired me to write something like for them or rewrite something. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yay! Now let's discuss. Now, I know with Get It Made, you've been working with them for a while, but how did you know that this was a good idea to jump into this? Because
This
that's
particular
today's topic.
project. Oh,
No, I mean, how did you obviously, like I said, with Get It Made, you've been working with them for a while, so there's that history. But when this was presented to you, how did you know this is a good project to work on? Not the quality of the project, but like, I'm not gonna get screwed over is basically
oh,
what that's today's topic. So let's discuss that.
well, I think it's really interesting because I've been a member of Get It Made for almost 4 years now, and over that time I've learned a lot. It's really helped me improve my craft, and I think the people that I've worked with that run the organization, have seen that my scripts are good.
Mhm.
As I've worked with the story producers, polishing them up, I've gotten a lot of really good feedback, a lot of positive feedback. And I think that just, in the organization, made me a candidate for this project. And, they thought that I had the skills that they needed and the kind of the critical analysis too, to understand where the story's at and where it needs to go. Because we spend a lot of time doing that and Get It Made. We do a lot of peer review, reading each other's scripts and giving each other feedback and live table reads and giving notes and learning to take notes and give notes. And I think, you know, that's really helped me become a critical reader, which helps me make me a better writer.
Very cool. And congratulations on the
Thank
new
you.
gig. That's so
Yeah, I'm
exciting.
very excited. So we haven't actually started yet. It's like next week. But it's great because I'm working with two producers who are gonna, give me their notes on the script and compare my notes to theirs, and then I'm gonna start rewriting. So I'm pretty excited.
Very cool.
Yeah, I have to do some research though. It deals with there's some mental illness,
Mhm.
action, kind of tinges to the characters that I need to do some research on to be authentic on that. I'm excited about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How about you? You've been a paid writer now for quite a while, actually, at various
Yeah.
various gigs.
Yeah, I mean, but it hasn't always been easy, I guess. So, like I said, today's topic is figuring out writing gigs. Where do you find them? How do you know? I think the bigger question is how do you know they're good or not? And it's hard. It can be hard because if you're just applying willy-nilly, like like me, raise his hand, um, you don't always have that background. Like you have that background with Get It Made to know that they're a good company to work with, you
Right, I
know?
have experience with them. I've seen them work. I've seen behind the scenes. I know I can trust them.
Yeah.
They're good to their word.
Yeah. And my current day job with Duskwave, same thing. I was working with them as a voiceover artist, and then they brought me on as a writer, and I'd been with them for, at least a year, like as a freelancer. So I knew that they were a good company, Even then, when they offered me the writing job, I'm like, is this legit? Because I'd never really like delved into that world before. And so, now it's been 3 years. I'm like, okay, it is totally fine. Like, it's fine. But I have applied to other things where, oh, golly, especially when you're speccing, I think that when you're looking at jobs, if you don't have that personal connection, like a reference or you've worked with them before, you really need to be like buyer beware. You know what I mean? You really need to just dip a toe in and be careful. I once did a spec for somebody. They needed a spec for, like, a pilot or something, and they it was really weird because they gave me the materials and they're like, "Create a scene based on what you see here." And I'm like, "Okay." So I created a scene. Now, I would assume if you're speccing, they kind of wanna see if it fits in the world, but they also wanna see, do you understand the characters and how well do you write?
Yeah, it's kinda like a trial almost, kind of like a
Yeah,
test.
but I don't quite know where you want I don't have your show bible. I don't know where you wanna take it. So I don't have that much information. So I sent in the scene, and the guy lambasted me. The person was like, "Oh my gosh, this is not where I envisioned this story going. This I had such high hopes for you, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Whoa, buddy, we're good. I don't need to work with this," you know? And
Wow.
they're like, "I can give you another chance." And I'm like, "I don't need no another. I don't need a chance. I already see what I don't want to work with this person, you know?"
Sounds like that one of those dating things where you kinda what do they call it? Neg the girl or whatever, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah, and, like, to me, if you're gonna say that to me, you can give me notes. I can take criticism. You can say, "Oh, I think this maybe didn't work out quite well," but it felt to me, and I've had this experience several times, it felt to me like they just wanted something that they could kinda take really quickly and not I guess for me as a writer, when I've gone into, for example, writers' rooms at Duskwave, I'll pitch something, but we massage it. I don't expect you to take the first pass. You know what I'm saying? I expect you to give me notes and say, "Okay, well, what about this? What about this?" I don't expect you to take it as is and dump it into your project. And that's kinda how that felt. So I think you have to and I didn't get paid for it. I didn't get paid to spec. So I think you really do have to kind of be, like, eyes open, buyer beware on a lot of these things, you know?
Yeah, I'm obviously, I've been burned in the business a few times, but that's more like on the producer side and, with projects I'd already written and stuff like that.
Well, what kind of red flags did you have there?
What kind of what kind of reflex didn't I have? I was really really new in it in the business, so I basically watched a whole bunch of red flags fly by my face and let them go. Just you know, empty promises, delays, um, a lot of pressure to like sign options and stuff like that. Those sorts of things. You don't need a lawyer. This is no big deal. That kind of stuff. Like seriously, I was so green. I was literally fresh off off out of my car driving into LA and this stuff was happening. So I
But I
learned the
mean,
hard
it's
way.
yeah, it's important to talk about this because I think a lot of times we want the next job, writers, actors, excuse me, what have you, but we don't talk enough about the red or yellow flags that you might be seeing, and all you can really do is trust your gut because you don't have everyone's on the same level as you. You know what I mean? So they can't tell you unless they're like an accomplished person, they can't tell you, "Oh, that's a bad deal. You need to do this, this, and this, or just don't even work there." You know what I mean? So I think it is important to discuss like the red and yellow flags you see.
Mhm. I mean, most of what I've done though has been trying to sell my spec scripts. So, I've used a lot of different
Mhm.
services like Screenwriter Staffing, Inktip, International Screenwriters Association. They all publish leads on stuff. So the first thing I always do when I see these leads, someone's looking for a script that kind of fits one of my projects, is I always research the company as much as I can to make sure that, this is someone I want to work with. Because sometimes you'll get like they'll have a name listed and you'll look them up and like this guy was, second assistant camera on 3 shorts, and
Mhm.
it's like, well, why are they out there looking for feature films? I mean, are they really ready to produce a feature? Do they have the backing that they need? What am I walking into by sending this person my script?
Mhm.
So, from that perspective, I wanna make sure someone that I'm sending my script to, they don't have to be like, Spielberg. They don't have to be like, already, fully established in the business. We're all, like you said, at the same level, just in different roles. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of directors, a lot of producers out there that are at their level of the same level you are in their career, and they need to prove themselves through various projects. So you have to be able to trust somebody to some degree, but you have to also be careful that you cover all your bases.
Yeah, for sure.
but do your research is the most important thing. So if someone's, before I even submit a script, I try to figure out who's asking for it. They don't always publish that when you see these leads in these
Mhm.
different newsletters and websites. So you have to kind of like, you know, like with ISA in particular, International Screenwriters Association, they always say this is an industry, we've vetted this person for you. This is a
Mhm.
person with connections to streamers. This is a person at a studio. This is, someone who has made films before. So that's at least got, some credibility to it. Other ones just give you a name, and you can look them up and see what they've done before on IMDb. It's usually pretty easy. And then you can decide whether that's someone you think you want to work with. Sometimes it's like, well, they're on the other side of the world. They're not, in LA, or they're not domestic.
Mhm.
And you have to decide, do I want my film made in another country? What's it going to be like in that case? So you do have to do your research.
Yeah. And I think when you're it's kind of funny. There's a fine line also between well, how do you feel about watermarks? Because I've had scripts where they've and as an actor, they've sent me the sides or they've sent me the entire script and it's watermarked and it's password protected and I'm like, "Okay." And then other people, one of my favorite don't do this. It's a rookie mistake. If you're going to watermark, you put the name of the person you are sending the watermark to, not your name, because if it gets leaked,
Right.
you need to know where the leak came from. But watermarks are a weird thing for me because I've heard it both ways where it's like you should watermark, and then I've heard other things where it's like, "No, that's annoying." Like, why would you? I don't know. Where do you stand on watermarks?
I register my scripts with the WGA. I file copyrights.
Mhm.
That's the bottom line. I mean, if you do that, you've got your protections. Watermarking is just you telling the other person, I don't trust you. So it's not a good way to start a relationship. I have done a lot of NDAs when I've sent scripts to people, especially
Mhm.
agents, managers. They, not even NDAs, but they want like, they want documentation that you're not going to sue them if they happen to come up with something similar
A
down the
similar
line.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're kind of giving a little bit of freedom in that respect. I mean, you still have your copyrights and registrations, but there's skepticism on both sides, because ideas are not all original. We've talked about that before. Anytime you come up with an idea, there's someone else that has the same idea pretty much, but you have to be able to prove yours was created first or whatever specific story elements. Anyway, so that's why, a lot of these places you submit script tos will want you to sign a release, that, and if they still copy your stuff too closely, you can still go after them. So releases aren't that big a deal. But as far as watermarking your stuff, I feel like coming from the writer, it's kind of like they have so many writers to choose from. That's a red flag to them that this person's going to be trouble. So I would leave off watermarks. Put your name on the cover. If you want to put a copyright on the cover, you can. That kind of is a little tiny signal that says I'm protecting myself.
Well, let's get into that. NDA versus copyright versus um you will not sue me for idea copying or
Releases, yeah,
similar ideas.
yeah,
The differences. So with an NDA, okay, well, let's go with copyright because I know that one better. Copyright is the fixed form of the final product. Like that is basically like uh if you wrote a song or a book or a film, that is that particular expression with those particular words and that particular combination with that particular music. It's
yep,
very, very specific,
yep,
which is not the same as like somebody going, "Oh my gosh, you stole my idea," because unless they completely lift passages, and I don't remember the percentage, it has to be a fairly high amount that you've taken verbatim. That is not a copyright infringement. If somebody takes your idea and just kind of maybe changes the names of the characters and changes what city they're
right,
from,
hmm,
it's not exactly because otherwise we'd only have one love story, we'd only have one breakup story. You know what I mean? Like
right,
you kind of can't go that nitty gritty. NDA, if I'm right, is more like I'm giving this to you And if you go off and do something with it without compensating me or talking to me, I know that you did it. And you're also not allowed to talk about this for X amount of time or for forever. Is that correct? On the
Right,
NDA?
that's yeah, and that works both ways. You can have an NDA that says that they won't talk to other people about your story without permission,
Mhm.
and then a lot of times if especially if you're, with writing assignments, if somebody's gonna hire you to write something, they don't want you to talk about it with anybody else.
Mhm. And work made for hire is also an issue, because I'm actually going through this right now where I nearly got a writing gig and I pitched an idea and the person took the idea, tweaked it, but the base idea is still what I pitched. I never got compensation for any of it. But I don't
Mm,
really think I have anything because as we just mentioned with ideas, and also it was a work made for hire, I don't
mhm.
really know where I have a leg to stand on. You know what I mean?
It's a vague yeah, work for hires are definitely a vaguer kinda thing. That's why I always wanna get
Mhm.
stuff in writing.
Yeah. If you're pitching your own thing, like you pitching your scripts, that's not work for hire. But if I'm coming in, like my current day jobs, that is work for hire. Any idea I pitch to the company, any writing I do, going on now to Duskwave, the video games and the comics, any writing I do for them, any ideas I pitch become theirs because I'm
Mhm.
a hired gun. And I understand that and I'm fine with it. Um it's harder when it's on spec and I don't
Right.
know. Yeah. It's a tough situation.
That goes to the third thing, which is the release, and that's
Mhm.
usually an agent or a manager or a producer or a studio wanting you to sign a release if you want them to read your script. And
Mhm.
that's that idea kind of thing, like, they might already have an idea for a script that's similar to yours. Maybe that's why they wanna read yours because they wanna buy it, and that's
Mhm.
great. But if they don't like your script or your writing or whatever, they don't want you to sue them if they go off and make their movie that's similar but
Yep.
different.
Yep. And there's a lot of cases in Hollywood where things are, like, what is it? Bugs Life and Ants comes to mind. And
Yep.
I think wasn't there like
Armageddon and, what's the other one? Deep Impact were the 2,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
asteroid movies that came out at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cases where you have very similar and we're not talking like, because like, for example, I think is it what is it? Like, Sci-Fi Channel was really known for, like we had Pacific Rim, so now we have Atlantic Rim. So, like,
That's the
uh
Asylum, yeah,
yeah,
studio.
yeah. We're not talking about stuff like that, but, like, that kind of could also fall under that too, where it's like, "Okay, that's pretty darn similar,"
Well,
you
the funny
know?
thing there is, like a studio would announce a big blockbuster movie that's coming out next summer, and
Mhm,
the only thing you would know about is, like, the title or maybe the background information on it, like, maybe it's based on something,
mhm.
and then the Asylum would go out and make a really cheap version, not a version of it because they wouldn't know what it is, but they'd make a movie based on the same concept,
Yeah,
but
and it wasn't a parody, which
it
would be
wasn't a
fair use.
parody, although sometimes it felt like it.
Yeah,
These cheaper versions, with a similar name,
mhm,
but completely different stories because they were almost produced at the same time, so there was no way for them to know what the actual big studio movie
yeah,
was going to be.
yeah,
But they were trying to get their movie done quickly and get it out into the theaters so that maybe through confusion or through streaming or DVD, people would buy or rent it thinking it was the other one.
yeah. I mean, this has been going on forever. I remember oh my gosh, this is totally gonna date me, but do you remember, cassette singles?
Yeah.
So, I remember Closing Time had just come out, and that was their first, big song for Semisonic, and I didn't remember the name of the band correctly because this is prior to, like, Google searching and you know what I mean? So, you just had to remember if the DJ said the name of the song, and so I couldn't quite remember it, and there was a tape, So Chaotic, next to Semisonic.
Interesting.
And I bought the wrong tape because I didn't know because it was also called Closing Time, you know what I mean? So
Uh,
it was, like, a very similar band name, and, like, I'm like, "Oh, I think this is it," and, like, it wasn't, but it was enough advertising to fool you, but I'm sure there was no lawsuit, like,
well, the question is, was the song any good?
I don't I didn't like it, I was so upset that it wasn't the right song that I think I just, like, threw
Oh,
the tape away, but, like, I remember that because that's a perfect example of, like but you can't I don't know if Semisonic ever sued them. I don't think you can. You can't copyright a title And it's,
No,
"So
there's a
your
lot of
band name
songs with the
sounds
same title.
similar. Oh, well," you know?
Yeah, unless only if they, there have been suits about copying the, melodies and
The melody, yeah, that's
the
usually where
melody
you
of
see
stuff.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, rhythms and melodies and things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's a tricky thing. It's very much as I've been pitching more and doing more freelance work, it's very much do your due diligence, you
Mhm.
know? And I'll be honest, even if you're like, "Oh, I get a recommendation," because the one right now, the idea issue that I'm looking at, that was a recommendation from a friend.
Mm.
So, you have to really just do your research,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
protect yourself, make sure you have
Mhm.
contracts, and, if somebody won't give you a contract, you gotta think twice, yeah.
And I will say this too, if you are thinking of doing, and you should, uh, writing gigs freelance to supplement your own projects, here's my rule of thumb. I will never pitch an idea that I personally want to do. So you steal my idea, it's fine. I didn't want to write about it anyway, except unless I was getting paid by a third party. But I'm never going to pitch you an idea that I want to develop for my own IP.
Right. That goes back to when I was working with a writing partner when I started. We have a whole bunch of IP that we worked on developing together that if we ever sell it, she and I will still be partners on those things. So, there were some projects that I started working on when I was still partnering with her, but I wrote myself that are kind of in this weird gray area that I always wonder, well, is that technically part of that group or is it my own
Mhm.
stuff? But I don't think it'd be a big issue, working with her on stuff. So yeah, you have to make sure, especially when you work with other writers too, that creates a whole nother, issue around
Oh yeah.
ownership.
Yeah, if you're
If you
gonna
have to
work
write in
with
a
other
team,
writers, contracts, contracts, contracts
yeah,
everywhere,
yeah, and
for
you've worked
sure.
on writing teams, so you know what that's like.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, for, the one that I'm currently working on, that's work for hire, so anything we pitch and anything we write, that's just the company's. Like, I'm not dealing with, like, "Okay, how much percentage of this do you own for the writing?" You know? But like I said, also, I don't mind my 2 things with writing for other people is, 1, I serve your IP, so you tell me what you want, and I will pitch ideas to that, but also, I will never pitch something that I personally want to write about.
Good
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
well, I think we've hammered that out for people. We'll put some links in the show notes to some of this stuff. I'm gonna do a quick pitch for Get It Made. Actually, has given us a promo code for 50% off their
Oh,
30-day trial. It's WGT50. You can go to the App Store and download the app called Get It Made, and you can do it all on the app where you can do the trial, and they have take you through steps and lessons and just determining where you are in your writing process. It's a whole writer's program, so if you're interested in looking at Get It Made, check that out.
and also let us know your best tips to protect yourself as a writer, but still get your name out there.
Yes, and follow us online at WG Therapy on X, Twitter, whatever. They're all the same thing now. Blue Sky, Instagram, and writersgrouptherapy.com has all our past episodes. Until next time, thanks for listening.